It's the rule of law, And it doesn't matter how you define investment in Australia, whether it's, time, money, energy, goodwill, trust. The rule of law gives us the confidence to be able to do so, And it's not just the rule of law, nor is it just democratic government. That's not a definition of anything, It's legitimately elected, open, checked, scrutinised, responsible democratic government. It's loyal opposition, It's loyalty to the nation, not the government. It's a sophisticated trick Australia is very good at. Not everyone is. Okay, and it's more than just, Prime Minister's question time. It filters down into Senate estimates, for argument's sake. We look behind the curtain of government. We want to see the receipts in Australia, mate. We want to see where the money's going. And it filters down further into who we are as a people. It's the freedom of association, right? The right to protest. It's the right to trial by jury. The separation of government from police and courts. Prime Ministers don't decide who's arrested in Australia, much less whether or not they're guilty. These are ancient rights, won over centuries, won through a lot of blood, frankly. We're best watchful of attempts to dilute them, And it's a free, professional press. It's the best bulwark against corruption that we have. Okay, it's freedom of expression of speech. It's freedom of religion, of conscience, of expression of political preference. It's civil rights. It's equality before the law. It's universal suffrage, mate. It's another list that goes out the door and down the road. And we're wise to shine a light on these values because they are threatened. The threat is real and it's close. We have, for argument's sake, an increasing number of migrants coming into Australia from countries that don't have deep roots in Western democratic values, who are bringing kids up in Australia, surrounded by social media that's filling their heads with all kinds of garbage, mate. Dangerous liars. And probably the most important thing I can say to you today, is to consider how the youngsters of Australia perceive this construct, how the kids 4 to 11, say, perceive it. Because what they're seeing, particularly in the relation between the House and the Deputy Speaker, is the rule of law in action. They're seeing really quite powerful men and women subject to rulings of the chair and respectful of those rulings, whether it goes their way or not. The rule of law applies to all, whether you're a toddler or the Prime Minister of Australia. And don't be put off also by the nexus of nation and state this evolution of the chair represents. The relationship between the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker being predominantly ceremonial. Ritual is powerful stuff. It's probably the most powerful storytelling tool we have. It's water on a baby's head. It's wedding vows. It's soil and flowers on an old man's coffin. It's how we action bring to life values that shape who we are as individuals. And the nation we together become. It also has to be said on this occasion that the partisan speakers of old, they undermine everything I'm talking about. They represent a rule of law in service of one set of interests, actively seeking the detriment of another, whose primary motivation is self-interest. But the more impartial speakers of today underpin everything I'm talking about. They reinforce it, add value to it. Australia wants to have a conversation about standards in public life. We can weave through this structure. I'll return to that in more detail another time. But for now, to the business of speaking to Australia, This is not a head of state by constitution. This is a head of state by convention. And the convention by which we found this institution and by which it goes on to conduct itself in public life is based on a really simple premise. Okay? And that simple premise is that where there is dispute, the speaker is mute. Mute. Because if there's an argument going on in the country here, then Australia has not decided on that matter and the Speaker cannot speak to it. It's when that argument is resolved we can apply this instrument. Yeah? We're creating a driver of solidarity in the nation. You know, an institution who's, more often than not, truth be told, by conducting itself true to the convention, underwrites the ability of the country to put its differences aside, to make the hard compromises the national interest requires when we are tested, as we are sure to be in the years and decades to come, never mind the rest of the century. You know, a head of state that inspires, you know, encourages, facilitates, you know, represents value to Australians, yeah, in the ability of us all to come together when we can, and sometimes when we must. You know, to be that one Australian, mate, one Australian that lives the responsibility of speaking for the nation, speaking for us all. Not one version of it, one mob or other are pushing. The whole country. Speak for the nation. Yeah. And where there is dispute, the Speaker is mute. That said, how would this institution deal with an issue that cuts across the grain of the convention? How would the Speaker deal with an issue like the House being in broad agreement on a matter, the state being relaxed about a matter that out in the country is controversial, yeah, that is emotive, that is dividing the nation? Yeah. How would this Speaker interact with the political forces around it on an issue like